and welcome to our most recent class after a bit of a layoff in a recalibration. Purim came and went. Here we go. New style, new season. Just to give a bit of an update, what we're going to do. There's a new book in the making, God willing. It's going to be the English translation of the Vilna Gaon's commentary of Song of Songs, with a focus of the three works of King Solomon: Mishlei, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Koheles, and Song of Songs, Shir Hashirim. Classes will be given alongside the development of the book. So far, 2 verses have been rough copied and translated. Therefore, the material is ready to come out. And in between, there's several other projects in the works. It should be an exciting and fun year. And one of the things that we endeavor to do is the radio shows have been immensely popular, just giving different topics and different concepts for all the different types of viewers around the world. And so, God willing, also there will be a radio show coming out focusing on the wisdom for everyday life in the world. I'm not sure yet what we're going to call it. It's not going to be as cumbersome as I just said it. It'll have a nice name to it. But the point why I'm bringing that into focus for this introduction is the endeavor will be to learn the Talmud Bavli alongside perhaps the Yerushalmi, Gemara in general, to basically dig out pearls of wisdom from the Talmud. Right? There's always the saying of the wisdom of the sages, so to speak, and that's what I endeavor to do. This class will be number 1 in that style of learning. I don't know if this is a series, however ongoing. The Ger lectures will be ongoing and dedicated to the book teachings and such. The Song of Songs will be an ongoing series, but the pearls of wisdom from the sages, we'll see how it goes, but I think you'll enjoy this class immensely. I know I did in preparing it. And for that, we begin with the tractate of brachas. This is for a Jewish audience, a bit more than the non-Jewish audience, because we're going to use a lot of Yeshivish, Hebrew, Yiddish, Aramaic, and any other Aic terms you can imagine to convey meaning here. I'm not going to watch my mouth, so to speak, for constant translations. It's my intention to keep it as universal and English and easily understood as possible, but not for the sake of flow and content of the class. And with that said, the nature and title of the class, Mazal. Already we probably lost 95% of planet Earth. All right, so let me just give a quick kind of digest. I know I said I'm not going to do this, but we don't want to lose everybody right away. This is the Talmud brachas. All right, there are X amount of tractates and Shas, what, 36, 37, 38?
63.
No, but the Gemara, it goes down to the 30s. All right, the Talmud Bavli. There's 30-some tractates, the Talmud Bavli. How many in the whole Shas? 63. The Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem version, has ones that the Babylonian doesn't, and vice versa. What made it into the Babylonian Talmud, which is the steady diet of the yeshiva world for a very long time, as the Yerushalmi Talmud never quite made it into the mainstream. Not to say that it's fringe. It just is not the soup du jour. It is told, maybe even prophesied, that it will be the soup du jour. It will be the main Iker diet of Talmudic learning, at least towards the redemption or in the redemption, by the words of the Vilna Gaon in Kol HaTorah. With that said, brachas is the first tractate in Shas. Shas stands for Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, the 6 orders of the oral law. And the first word, just like Bereshit, is a major word in the Torah, right? There's the Tikkuni Zohar that has 70 different takes of how you can split up, cut up, and dissect Bereshit. One of the example, Bereshit has the first word of the Torah, which means in the beginning, literally, or as I prefer to say it, not in the beginning, but Bereshit, with Reshis, as the wisdom of Solomon says, Reishis, Chochma, Yiras Hashem, and all these type of things, that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Another way you can cut it up is Bara Sheet, the creation of 6. And as you'll find in the Vilna Gaon commentary, 6 is again a direct hint towards the 6 orders of the Mishnah, which it doesn't need to be said, the written Torah, because obviously Bereshit is a written Torah mechanism as it begins the 5 books of Moses. So you got to have like a matrix, right? The Bereshit introducing the 5 books of Moses, and then you have implicit inside Bereshit the creation of 6, that the oral law is present with the written law. That will be expounded upon greatly in chapter 1, verse 2 of Song of Songs, commentary of the Vilna Gaon. And again, we have the same type of concept which begins the oral tradition of the tractate Brachas. Again, it means blessings, loosely. It's not a book of blessings. That's not to be mistaken in this juncture. It's not a siddur, it's not a prayer book, it's a Gemara. It deals with many items, not just blessings, but it is called, nonetheless, Brachas. And the first word of Brachas is Me'emasai. The Talmud wants to know, what time do we say the reading of the Shema at night? Me'emasai karin l'kriyas Shema ba'arvis. And the title of the class, as I said, is From Me'emasai La Mazal. We're going to go from Me'emasai. I find a law-based discussion of what time can we say the Kriya Shema, the reading of Shema at night. And we're going to end up at a rather spiritual location. And what is the inner dimension or intention of the Talmudic passage of reading the Kriya Shema. And my own little kind of flip on the words here, this is David Katzism, I guess you could say. I just like to make a little quick note to what I see in the language. If you look at Me'emasai, Mem, Aleph, Yud, Mem, Taf, Yud, as it's exactly spelled in the Mishnah, and again, make like a Bereshis kind of learning here, you can actually say it is a kind of derivative, Me'emasai, right? Like emes lamito, absolute truth. Right? And the Aleph, Mem, Taf making up emes, the Yuds for a grammatical nuance, and the Mem making it the grammar nuance of the word. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, for my many fans in Sfat that like to judge on grammar. They know who they are. So I'm going to make up my own pronunciation, but nonetheless, the Rem is succinct. Me'emasai, it's kind of strange, isn't it? But it works. The idea is it's from emes lamito. It's from absolute truth. The concept of the oral Torah, and underneath of it, there's a layer of wisdom that we hope to penetrate tonight and get to a revelation of Mazal, i.e. the spiritual flow from HaKadosh Baruch Hu into our lives. With that said, the first Mishnah in the tractate of Brachas, we want to know from what time. I think at this point, by the way, I'm going to become more Jewish and stick to a yeshivish twang to make this possible to give over. We want to know in the Talmud, what time can we say Shema at night, right? And the Gemara is going to ask a couple questions. Why didn't we start by asking what time of Shema in Shachris? Why didn't we start with morning? Why do we start with Shema? I don't even know if there is a Shema, says the Talmud, right? I never heard of Shema. You should say, Boker Tov, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Gemara talking, and we're here to introduce Torah. Does anybody know what Torah is? Torah, anyone? No? That's how we would have thought it should have started. But it says, hey, everybody, hey, what time is Kriya Shema? As if we know. Right? It expects you to know. The Talmud says, the traits of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are not like the traits of Mishu, Basar, Vadam. Right? God, a divine vessel, only that which is full can contain its contents. or additional contents. But an empty vessel cannot contain contents. Whereas by flesh and blood, only an empty vessel can contain its contents, and a full vessel just overflows. And the idea is, God says in so many words in the Mishnah or the Midrash, my thoughts are not your thoughts. So therefore, since we're just expected to somehow know what Kriya Shema is, and the commentaries will tell you, Yeshiva will tell you, by the time you read the Gemara inside the original language, you should know. And we come to a question of, is it the time that the Kohanim come out of the mikveh and they're purified now and they can eat their holy food, truma? Or is it the time that the poor guy comes home and eats his bread? Or is it the time that the guys come home from synagogue and they're ready for their meal? Or is it the time of several different kind of scenarios like this? And there's a long exchange, it's a famous exchange, and the law advocates will say it's merely a flowchart of which time is first. Right? Can we start saying it from 8 p.m. or 8:05 p.m., 8:10 p.m.? We want to say that when the stars come out. So in a paradigm clock in Judaism, 6 a.m. is sunrise, 6 p.m. is sunset, 6 p.m. and 1 minute is darkness until 5:59 tomorrow morning. And we want to know when can we say Shema? So then the bottom line of the Mishnah is, one opinion is when the sunlight rises tomorrow, Amna Shachar, Alos Amna Shachar, when you can start to see the morning sunrise, even before the sun peaks above the horizon. Or the rabbis, who say that it's until Chatzos, midnight. And we say, you know what, ignore the opinion that you can say until sunrise. We want to hold until sun to the middle of the night. And there's a story brought, and this is one of the funniest things that they ever heard in yeshiva. It's the literal. Everyone makes this is what everybody that ever went to yeshiva learns this Mishnah. So it's all the guys from all the corners of the world have discussed this, and the Talmud makes it very clear that the sons of a rabbi went to a house of drinking, and we don't want to. Nobody ever wants to tell a young bacher that it's a bar or a drinking kind of night. So they went to a wedding. They went to drink at a wedding. Always sticks out in my mind. But the point is, they went to the wedding. They were drinking, and they forgot to say Shema. The father, the rabbi, said, did you remember what time? So at the end of the story, we say, why do the rabbis hold to say Kriya Shema until midnight? To distance man from sin, transgression. We don't want you to go to bed and not having said the Shema. Clear? Is that what you've always heard? Everyone's always heard that. So we want to, there's all these questions, right? What time do we read the Shema? And for the advanced student that reads Bava Kama in the Tosfos, there's a major thing that comes up. Is Shema even a mitzvah? Big question. Everyone will say, oh, of course it's a mitzvah. What do you mean? Yeah, it's a mitzvah. But in the actual truth is we don't know and probably think that it's not one of Taryag's 613 mitzvahs. Rabbanan mitzvah? Absolutely. But is it a mitzvah? 613. Chances are, no way, Jose. For that reason, you don't have to say not only 3 paragraphs, not only 2 paragraphs, but perhaps just the opening stanza of the Shema. So the ongoing debate and question in the commentaries, is it deraisa from the Torah, i.e. a mitzvah, or is it rabbinic? Then we want to know, assuming we're going to say it, which we will, what time do I say it? do we say it, again, when the stars come out, when the poor guy eats his bread, which I have to translate into my life, whenever that is? Do I say it after Mariv, after davening? Do I say it before davening? Do I have to daven Mariv at all? Some say I don't have to daven Mariv. But then there are others that say if you don't daven Mariv, you're chayiv misa, for transgressing the words of the rabbis. Then we say, but really, the main Kriya Shema is alamita, right? On your bed, when you lay down. Why? What's the source of saying Shema? When you lay down and when you wake up. So do we take it literally when you lay down to go to bed? Or is there a time to lay down? I.e., before your meal, after Mariv, before Mariv. When do we lay down? And then the rabbis are going to discuss when do we wake up. Until 4 hours in the day you can pray or daven the morning prayer, Shachris, the Shachris davening. So this is, now you can see a bit of the godless of brachas, right? Very quickly, we thought we had it all figured out. You know, you wake up like a Jew, and you pray, and it's great, and we go to bed, and we this, and we're awesome, and yeah. But in the very end of it, what is a simple religion of Judaism, right? You got to chap Arayin and catch a Marav, right? The vernacular of 95% of Haredi Jews, right? Chap Marav somewhere. Underneath chapi Marav, chapi mincha, putting on the cholent, right? And all these things that we do is Yiddishkeit. There is actually a chachma underneath all of that. Right? When you say your Kriya Shema and Minyan every day, there's the question underneath of it, is it D'oraisa, is it D'Rabbanan? Right? The very nature of Kriya Shema. Is it best to say it in the Minyan? Do I say it at home? Or do I say it before I go to bed? Right? The Talmud in the derech of iyun, of intensive, in-depth learning, which is what the Talmud is, and what the commentators do, is unveil the innate wisdom of the sages. So there's two ways to go about your Judaism. And those ways are either with wisdom or with ritual. Right? And that might sound like a bit of a contentious statement, but we all know there are two kind of guys that go and daven Shachris Mincha Mariv. There are those that have kavana in their davening, and there are those that are chapping mincha. There are those that care what they say to the Eibishter, and there are those that do not care what they say to the Eibishter. There are those that mumble their tefillas and mumble their learning, and there are those that care and daven with intent and say the words and learn and all these things. And it's not to say this one is better than this one or vice versa. There is Bekias, fast learning, and iyun, in-depth learning. Each one has a maila and a chesaron, a strength and a weakness. The fast guy in Bekias, right, he is going fast. He's going to know a lot of things, cover a lot of ground. He'll have a lot of knowledge. He's a guy you want to know. But if you want to ask him, is Kriya Shema mitzvah d'oraisa or d'Rabbanan? Probably never heard of the question. Right? Doesn't learn Tosfos. Doesn't learn the Iker in-depth Perushim in Shas. Then, at this point, we've already gone yeshivish. So, and then you have the iyun guy. Right? He can tell you all about 30 shitas of Kriya Shema, if it's d'oraisa or d'Rabbanan. But he's only been that sugya for the last 5 years, and the other guy has finished Shas twice. This guy has been on one sugya for 5 years. So he knows his thing, but don't ask him about random facts all throughout Shas. He doesn't know. So can you judge? No. Should you judge? No. But the bottom line is, there are facts on the ground. Right? This guy, the iyun guy, when he's davening, he probably knows what he's saying. He probably worked out what the words mean, right? So, but, is he always davening? So sometimes, the Vilna Gaon says in his commentary of Mishlei, if you're not able to daven with a minyan, all the time, you're yotzi, or at least you're accomplishing a similar effect by learning the iyun, by learning the things deeply. This guy never missed a minyan in his life. Does he know what all the things mean on the deepest level? Probably not. Will these guys ever talk about it in those terms? Probably not. It might sound like a fight, but it isn't. Chabad, Breslov, just arguing? Not really. They're just on two different planes of existence. So with that said, when we show up to pray, the one guy is going to have intention deeply, the other guy not so much. So there are two pathways we find in Judaism. Torah, Judaism. Chokhmah, wisdom, and religion. Right? Spirituality, ritual. Right? The guy that is Bekias, he is every day going. He just doesn't miss the minyan. Whereas the other guy wants to connect to God in his spirituality from a personal point of view on every level. And again, just two different schools of thought, right? Do you want to see everything, do everything? Or do you want to do X amount of things really well? Different perspectives, different souls, different types of people. With that said, we come to Kriya Shema again. And there's a very simple way of learning the Talmud. What time do we pray? When's it over? When does it begin? What did this one say? What did that one say? Let's write it out. And say this one came before that one. This one came after this one. Okay, boys and girls, let's go. Next page, next topic, move on. See you in about 5-10 years, next cycle. The iyun perspective says, hold on a second. Let's break this down and look at it really carefully. And we did that for this class. So the first thing you have to know is in the basic premise of the Mishnah, they're 3 times acceptable. Right? The Kohen, with his eligibility to eat holy food, Truma, Chatzos, and just before morning. Now when you look, and then on the next page there's all this rehashed in different formats. So at the end, it's very hard to understand what the Talmud wants to accomplish other than there is an optimal time to pray. That's all I know. There's an optimal time to pray Kriya Shema. I'm not interested in praying regular prayers or anything Jewish, but tunnel vision, when, the Talmud's saying, when do I pray Kriya Shema? Do I do it early, later, middle? Not sure. Now, there's a little side angle that all the time in these discussions of prayer, the Talmud says, where do we get these ideas from anyways? Right, you asked me, do we do korbanos at nighttime in the Beis Hamikdash? So all davening data is derived from the avoda of the Beis Hamikdash. Right? The chakras is corresponding to the chakras of the Beis Hamikdash. Mincha, mincha. Mariv, mariv, and musaf. Musaf, which I learned it from Musaf, by the way. And at the end of the day, even though we say that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov were Masadar, or Matakin, the Tefillas, according to Abraham woke up in the morning, Yitzchak, he was in the field, and Yaakov in Harbayas. All right? We use that as a smachta. It's a support that's where davening comes from. That there are times of the day, rui for davening, but really we learn it from the Beis Hamikdash. And with that said, here comes like what I call meme theory. You know what a meme is? Like these things that go around the internet, the memes, right? So I'm horrible at memes, but I tried to understand the chachma of a meme. If you have a picture of Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber, and underneath it says, I was a really cool guy once, you'd say, what does Star Wars have to do with being a really cool guy once? And it's not funny. And it's not wisdom. what I'm about to say, I'm not saying it's funny or wisdom, but you get the point. But if you showed a picture of Mark Hamill in a bar with Chewbacca, and Mark Hamill's 60 years old with a Heineken, and underneath it says, I was cool one day. You get the point, why it's funny and why it's chachma. And the answer is, because when you take something out of character, then it no longer is the star of the show. Right? We don't want Luke Skywalker to be the star of the show, because then it says only Star Wars, then I'm lost. But if we have what used to be Luke Skywalker as Mark Hamill, right? Then it becomes funny. It's a guy, he was famous. All the things come to focus now. But in the first picture, I wouldn't have thought to bring in Chewbacca and the pop culture and beer. I'm only thinking Luke Skywalker and George Lucas. But in a funny meme, right? You take the character out of context and out of character completely, then you can start to add on to that character, right? You can start to like almost ad-lib for that character, or what's it called? When you just improvise for him. The point that I'm making is this, that in the commentaries to the Kriya Shema, when you weren't thinking about it, because you were only concerned with what time can I pray. That's all you're thinking about. But then the Tosfos comes in, hits you and smack in the middle of your head, and says, by the way, tough guy, it's only about eating. And you say, what? Think about what the Beis Hamikdash is doing. What is it, I mean, this is a question for you. What is it that you were allowed to do until morning that we're talking about in comparison to the Kriya Shema? Do you know? Remember, we compare the Shacharis to the offerings of the morning, and the Mincha prayer to the offerings of midday, and the nighttime burning on the altar to Mariv. Musaf is Musaf, right? What they're sneaking in here is Kriya Shema. What's the parallel connection with Kriya Shema? And this is a fantastic concept, because no one thinks of it this way. They think time. But it's not. The eating leftovers of the karbanos has to be done by the time the sun comes up, or the beginning of the sun coming up. And if there's leftover and you ate after the time, kares, you're cut off. That's pretty heavy. So number one, we are comparing Kriya Shema to the eating of karbanos in the middle of the night. How fantastic is that? Why? Because you have all night to eat that food. All night you guys can be in the Beis Hamikdash eating, and if you put it off even 1 minute after, kares. So what's the only, and this is a question for you again, what's the only other thing a Jew has to concern himself with all night long? It's like a giraffe. Where do you shack the giraffe? People say, oh, it's a Masorah and we don't know, and I think we'd have to do it here or here. The answer is anywhere. You have like a mile long of a neck. Anywhere you cut is a kosher shechita. Anywhere. So it's like saying here, you finished your day, as the Talmud says, 6 o'clock came, your malacha's done. You're done. What are you going to do with yourself? You don't have to be up now for 12 hours. Right? 12 hours, you're out, you're done. You have one obligation upon yourself in those 12 hours. Just don't forget to say Shema. That's it. That's the only ul malchus shemayim you have in your head. You've davened, you've done tefillin, you have eaten, you've done all the things, everybody went to sleep, you now have a cheshbon, right? The clock is ticking, as we do know, we're looking at the clock. Just don't forget to say Shema by the time tomorrow comes, because you will have missed your opportunity. So by the eating in the Beis Hamikdash, I said, all right, scale it back a little bit, so you don't come to eat after the time. And we're saying the same thing by Kriya Shema, right? I don't want you to miss it, so scale it back and you won't miss it. There's the connection, right? And then let's say, you know what? Do you really have to eat past midnight? Right? Can't you just eat at midnight and take a nap and call it there? And then say, yeah, it's a good idea. I don't want to get kares. So then by Kriya Shema also, scale it back. Midnight, done, that's it, go to bed. Tired of looking at you, go to bed. And that's the answer. So the one guy who's rushing through his avodas Hashem, he says, what time? I got till chatzos, I'm okay. The other guy, the Be'iyun guy, says, wait a second. Is Kriya Shema even a time matter? The answer is, on one hand it is. On the other hand, it's not. It's a food matter. And when you look at all the examples of time in the Talmud, when do we say the Kohanim come out of the mikveh? When they're ready to eat the truma. When does the ani enter to eat, or to say Kriya Shema? When he eats bread with salt. When do the people from synagogue come home to say Shema? When it's time to eat Leil Shabbos. How fantastic is that? At the end of the day, there is no Kriya Shema. It's not a mitzvah. Then what is it? It's simply a connecting device to a Beis Hamikdash principle of you gotta eat before tomorrow comes. And Shema is something that we're doing similar to a mitzvah, if not a mitzvah, and we also have to not botch it enough that tomorrow should come before having said Shema. And the whole idea of putting it with eating in the Beis Hamikdash is like a meme. I was looking at my clock the whole time, and you're talking about food. And the Tosfos slips in the answer when you're not even looking. And when you look again in the Talmud, every single discussion was more about food than actually the Shema. So it's a food endeavor, as crazy as that is. So here's the idea. Here's the idea of why it's like food. The answer is this. There are things in halacha that are like nodes. Right? When you take a smicha test, which I'll tell you an actual example of something that was on my smicha test. Because it's very nogea. I'm just looking for a note. I don't know where the note is, so I'll continue. On the smicha test, there's a question of if you have a rock in your pocket on Shabbos. Can you leave your house and walk with that rock in your pocket? And so it's not written anywhere. It's not a mitzvah, right? It's not a beferush mitzvah you can turn to and say, oh yeah, it's the rock sugya, of course. And you can logically derive it a million ways to the moon. Well, you can't do it. It's like a buses to mavatal klima heichano, and then it's muksa, but on Shabbos you can move it for shas harachak, but it's makom sakana. You can svara it all day long. That's not the point of trying to do a svara. The point is there are little areas, gray areas, where there's no answer. And what it does is it ties together, 10, 20, 30 inyanim on one little premise. It's a node. In Kabbalistic terms, you would call it yesod. Right? A yesod that deals with a whole factor of issues. So what there's something called life. And we all live life. In fact, the Shulchan Aruch agrees with what I'm saying, taught me what I'm saying, at the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch, how to live as a Jew, is called Orach Chaim, the way of life. And in fact, the first halacha of the Shulchan Aruch is wake up like a lion. Literally in those words, and say Modeh ani lefanecha. And I decided one day to research, why do I need to say Modeh ani lefanecha? Now I sound like a chutzpahdik thing to ask. Everyone in yeshiva says, oh, what do you mean? It's halacha. I mean, it's halacha. But it's not halacha. But you just said it's in the Shulchan Aruch. That's right. But it's not a halacha like it's a mitzvah or it's something you have to do it. You know, it's like the Beis Hamikdash. We woke up, we went to the Beis Hamikdash, we said, oh, Modeh ani lefanecha. No, it's not a halacha like that. So what is it? Modeh ani, every morning. You wake up, as the Zohar says, you do the Netilas Yadayim by your bedside, to not go Daled Amos first, if you hold that way, which I do. I think it's very important. Right? Then you make Modeh ani, and then you say Netilas Yadayim. Now there's different ways of going about your morning. If you have to go to the restroom first, you go. There's different ways of doing it. The point I'm making is, why do we say Modeh ani? And the answer the Talmud gives is because it's good. And that just went right over your head. I'm positive it did. Good is actually a halachic term and concept. It is good to say Modeh ani lefanecha. Right? You went to bed, you gave your soul to the hands of the Lord, and you woke up, look at that, He put your soul back in your body. If you knew what that meant, you would wake up every morning saying, man, Modeh ani lefanecha. It's a big deal where you go when you sleep at night. It really, really is, which is why you wash in the morning. It's good that you sit up and wake up like a lion when you realize your sleep has left you, starting your day strong. Rather than laying there, checking it out. Oh, get things going a little bit, you know. Crack at noon. Yeah, you know it is. Right? Rather than, you know, you wake up, not only did you say Shema last night before the sun rose, and you went to bed, therefore, way before the sun rose, you actually woke up while it was still dark, because you went to bed Bisman Kriya Shema. Then you woke up 5:30 in the morning, washed your hands, got dressed, went to the bathroom, had some breakfast, got your tefillin on, ready to daven, go to the shul. Don't say shalom to your friend because you're going to minyan. Modeh ani is a key to goodness to start your day every day. It's the empowerment of the morning over the night, says David HaMelech in Tehillim. A nighttime guy, he just kind of wishes for tomorrow and hey, whatever happens. The Yid wakes up and says, I'm here, I got my soul back, let's go do Avodas Hashem. So as much as Modeh ani is simply good to say, in every sense of the word, right? It is a good thing to say. So much that you won't not say it once you know how good it is. That's why it's the halacha that you stand up or you sit up in bed and you say Modeh ani. Now, Kriya Shema is the same thing, right? How did you get to Modeh ani? You said, thank you, God, that and with Amunah, that I got my soul back. Because you sent your soul to God. When is the Iker Kriya Shema? Alamita. That's the big one, says Tosfos. Not the mitzvah that you think it is. And it doesn't all these bells and whistles, right? Because Kriya Shema Alamita, there's no bracha before or after. And you can get by saying the first parak. So all the chumras of the mitzvah's Kriya Shema goes out when you say Kriya Shema Alamita. Now, they don't want you saying Kriya Shema Lamita as the Iker. Why? When you just told me it's the Iker. It's the Iker because when you're laying down and you say Shema, and that's it, Laila Tov, folks, the next words out of your mouth are going to be Modani Lefanecha. So you're making a hekish. One good to one good. If this is good in the morning, it must have been good last night. Otherwise, I wouldn't have woken up. So why can't I just say Kriya Shema on my bed and be done with it? I don't need to know the ani and the bread and the Shabbos and the mikveh and the truma and tzeis kolchavim. Who needs it? Let me go about my business. I'll go to bed and that's it. That's not good. You might be right, but then again, it's not all about you, is it? It's about good. Modani is not about you waking up. We don't know who you are. We don't care who you are. You should just be happy you got your soul back, because that is good. Otherwise, God wouldn't have sent you your soul back. And you sent your soul by Kriya Shema Lamita. But it's not the Iker Kriya Shema vis-a-vis the wisdom of the Torah. So then why do I say Shema Minyan? Why do I need to go to Marav? Why do I need to do all these things? Because it's good. It's good. You say, why is it good? Because it's a Yesod. And it's a Node. And it's Hod. The answer is because basically your entire Avodas Hashem is going to fit into this little bracket called morning Modani and nighttime Kriya Shema Lamita, and before that Kriya Shema Minyan. Why? Put it all together, folks. Here we go. Now that you have said Shema in Marav, and Marav was next to Mincha, and how did you get to Mincha? Mastama, you were working, right? And you woke up and you said you daven Shachris. So now we got you to daven Shachris Mincha Marav. You were samech gula to tefillah. You said Kriya Shema in the Minyan. You went home to a prepared table. You ate dinner. You ate bread and wine, or whatever it is. You were unwinding. You got tired, and you went to bed, and you fell asleep, and you said Kriya Shema Lamita beforehand, and then you sent your soul up to the yeshiva Shomala, and you slept like a baby because you have good Mazal, because you have brachas from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because you were able to sleep peacefully at night, and you weren't crazy about what's going to happen tomorrow with the bills, because you have Amunah, because you're going to wake up and your soul will be in your body, and you'll wake up and you'll wash and you'll say Modani. That means you didn't go to bed at 4 in the morning. You're not smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, watching movies till 4 in the morning. You're not missing Shema. You're not out partying with the boys. You're not out at a wedding, drinking till all hours of the night, wondering if you were able to chop the last Zman Kriya Shema in the middle of the night. That's not good. It means you're not working in the day. It means you're not making parnasa. It means you're not taking care of your family. It means you have no table. Right? Are you even davening b'chlal? Are you doing anything b'chlal? Are you learning b'chlal? What in fact are you doing? Right? You were the one who was able to get Kriya Shema at 4:15 when also Shachar was at 4:16. You chapped it. Way to go. Kol hakavod. Rov Avodas Hashem is going to come into this pocket. Now it's a fictitious pocket called Kriya Shema. It doesn't exist. Now, rabbinically it does as a mitzvah. Maybe you can say it's deraisa, which is a strong evidence that it's not. But the inyan is deraisa. Right? Binding words of Torah, it is. Why do we say Kriya Shema in the minyan? Because we say it bisman divrei Torah. Right? You say it because you have to. It's an Ol Malchus Shemayim. Some say, the Vilna Gaon says, that you're not having Yotzi in your tefillin if you didn't say tefillin, or say Kriya Shema with tefillin on. Right? So don't think that it's just not a mitzvah, therefore, it has many functions, that's why it's a mitzvah. It comes in with chakras, and with tefillin, and Kriya Shema Lamita. It's more than an inyan. It's more than a minhag. It's a mitzvah through divrei Torah at the least. And then the rabbis sanctify it as a mitzvah d'Rabbanan anyways, so there's no such thing as you're not saying Kriya Shema. And when they sanctified Kriya Shema d'Rabbanan, now you're going to get your tefillin, which is deraisa. You are going to do deraisa things It's the node and the hub that pulls your entire day into fruition. You're going to go to bed on time. You're going to wake up on time. You're going to daven on time in the morning. You're going to work on time in the afternoon. You're going to do your davening at night. You're going to eat on time. And for practical health benefits, it's not healthy to eat your dinner at 4 in the morning. So the Rabbanan also happen to know a bit about basic common sense and health. Look at the Rambam. And you'll say, oh, but the Rambam said things are not shaykh to today. Okay, good, he did. But everyone knows you still don't eat dinner at 4 in the morning. Show me one medical journal says, yeah, you should drink coffee and a lot of cigarettes and eat bad food at McDonald's and Taco Bell until 4 in the morning. It'd be okay. Show me where that's written, please. Therefore, the Rabbanan are sanctifying a healthy code of existence. Right? It might not be diet pills and the most current gym membership, but basic elements of wisdom. How do you make your food? Sharp knife. How do you dress? New clothes that are clean. How do you wake up? On time. How do you go to bed? On time. When do you daven? In the right time. Common sense to life. Shlomo Melech calls it seichel. He also calls it eitzah. Right? Eitzah comes from Amri Das. Das comes from known wisdom. Wisdom is innate in the land. He fashioned the land with wisdom. Wisdom is the ancient tradition of how to live. Right? That's why the Torah says the Jews received the covenant of the ancients. We receive the ancient wisdom. We call that Judaism. We call that chapping mincha. We call that being Yotzi Kriya Shema. But the wise man will realize that there's still an Eitz Chaim under there. There's still a wisdom live and present in this world. And when you sanctify Judaism, you are connecting to that wisdom. Now, therefore, we say, let's back up off the wisdom thing for a second. We're going to come back to that. Notice the times in the Talmud it says shiur, the measure of saying Kriya Shema at night. You thought it was a point in time. Just like we say from Plaga Mincha. What time can you say Plaga Mincha? From 4:45 p.m. Boker Tov, boys and girls, 4:45 is not a point in time. If you read the Talmud correctly, you will see 4:45 until 6 p.m., whatever time it is they give, is the Zman Plaga Mincha. Right? It's a tekufa, is a period of time. Kriya Shema at night is a period of time. And when is that period? The time that you're eating. And you're going to eat bread. And you're going to have drink. Because you have salt with your bread. And you're thirsty. It's called derech eretz. Have some food on your table. Eat carbohydrates. Get tired. Lose your mind. It's called tired. Process. Want to go to sleep. That's when you say Kriya Shema. You should have already said it at Mariv. So you're done. Go to bed. Goodbye. See you tomorrow. Modani. Right? What does the Chumash say? Why do we have to know the chachma of tekufot, of time periods, instead of a nekuda of time? Because when the non-Jews see the chachmas of tekufot by Am Yisrael, that will bring redemption. They will say, the wisdom is with the Jews. And that's the wisdom we're trying to convey. Not just, you're not going to convey a wisdom, hey, I got to go chap mincha. That's not the wisdom. That's your personal avoda. It's your personal thing. It's your personal, let's go. The chachma is something else. Right? There's a guy who takes the picture. There's a guy who builds the camera. I want the guy to take the picture as a chachma of taking pictures. But if I want to know what a camera is, I'm not asking him, I'm asking the guy that built it. The Talmud continues. There are 3 watches in the night. Discussion if there's 4 or 3. And it says that 3 times a night that God roars like a lion. And says, wow, I destroyed my temple and exiled my kids because of their sins. And then the Talmud says also that each one of the watches of the night portions of the night, three things happen. A donkey brays in the first watch, to show it's the first watch. Second watch, a dog barks. In the third and final watch, a wife will speak with her husband as she nurses her child. Then we find a rabbi, totally separate conversation, in a dilapidated building, runs into Eliyahu Hanavi, as a matter of fact. And Eliyahu Hanavi teaches him three things. Right? I forget what they are. Don't daven in a chorva. You can daven along the way, and you can shorten your tefillah. I think you asked me about that, if I ever daven the shortened Shemona Esrei. And he says, wow, Eliyahu Hanavi, that's pretty super. Thanks for telling me. Then we continue further. And it comes out that we find David HaMelech. And we say David HaMelech was this fantastic guy. He would do divrei. He'd wake up in Chatzos by a lyre that would rattle with the wind, wake him up, and he would be Isaac divrei Torah, and then he would be Isaac even more in Tehillim until the day would come, and then the chief officers would come, and they would say, David, what are we going to do? The people are going this and that. And David, why are you up? The way of kings is to sleep until whatever time of the day, and you're up before the sun comes up. All unrelated stories. Right? And then, by the way, the guy who davened in the chorva, Eliyahu Hanavi said, what did you hear in the chorva? And he said, I heard a bas call. He said, I heard a bas call come, but it sounded like a dove, a Yonah. And Eliyahu Hanavi said, when Am Yisrael says in a kol kolus, Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah, 3 times a day, God says, thank God for my children. They come and they sanctify where I'm at. But if they don't come, otherwise, woe are the sons who are exiled, the father kicks out, and woe to the sons who are not welcome at the table of the father. Do you know what it means, kalas? In a voice, kalas, for Amen Yishmei Rabbah? Again, chachma versus rut. The rut guy says, Amen Yishmei Rabbah. But kalas is Amen Yishmei Rabbah. Very distinct, solid, and you don't just yell, it's not about yelling. It's deep, with meaning, full chachma in the voice. The Perush would say, if you do that, every time you say that, you tear up decrees in Shemayim. Evil decrees. It's a major thing. It's one of those things that sounds kind of fantastic, but actually is real in the koyach of it. You know what I mean? Like the Tiyos Yadayim in the morning. It's one of those things that you do, anyone can do it, it really works. Some things actually work. It's called chachma. That's a chachma. It's even said that the davening was really just a keli to be able to say, Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah. So now, back up again. We have the 3 lion roars of God. And I thought to myself, when do we ever see God roaring like a lion? Right? Because it has to mean something. It's not just the Talmud saying, yeah, God, roars like a lion, I guess. No, something happened. And we're learning the brachas, and we're putting it all together, and I realized it did happen. It did happen. Right? The first roar of the lion, when we put Mazal to it, Mazal never is as it seems. So did you cop the first roar of the lion? Right? The first guarding of the night. When was the first lion's roar? Eliyahu Hanavi came and taught 3 halachas to this rabbi. So God sends a shliach. The roar comes in a shliach. Lafi Mazal, and Eliyahu Hanavi appears, and that's the first roar. Now, if you're not zocha to Giloy Eliyahu, you're on a lower madrega, But you were at Mariv, and through a shliach and a shliach and a shliach, the guy in the minyan said, hey, did you ever know there's 3 things that Eliyahu Navi taught in brachos? You say, no, I didn't know that. You just had Gilui Eliyahu. Now, it was Mislavish and Kama Levushim, but nonetheless, you received the first lion's roar. Lefi Mazal. Where was the second lion? Did you chop it? David HaMelech wakes up like a lion. There's your second lion roar. Right? David HaMelech is God's lion roar. Again, the kaiches of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the midas of God, brought down into his creation. You are meant to be the lion roar. Wake up in Chatzos, be Isaac in Divrei Torah, right? And to the point where you'll be singing the praises of God. Basically, wake up and do Chatzos. We know Tikkun Chatzos is a huge deal. When you do that, like right now, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock with the time change, right? And we're pretty good to go. There's a koyach of Chatzos. Everyone spot learning knows that. That's the second lion roar. Then the third lion roar. Did we find a third lion roar? We did. The guys of David came in and said, the people are XYZ like a lion. So the mother, the wife talking with her husband, nursing the baby, the brain, donkey, and the dog, corresponding to 3 lion roars of God every night. It happens. Right? And the Talmud says, lion, lion, lion. Each time. But through a shinoi of Mazal. Right? It's not, don't look for like, the what do you call it, the Paramount Pictures, whatever, MGM Studio, whatever it is, the movie's like, It's not that. It's the Mazal. It's the Aryeh. It's the Gevura, the Mepia Gevura, from the mouth of God, who spoke 1, I heard 2. That kind of a thing. Powerful ruchnius through the creation. Shem Elokim Gematria Teva. Just now I found my Modani note. So there you have the simanim of the watch. The lion roar. All these things are Mazal Inyonim. Modeani is a good thing to say. And the ancient wisdom is given to Jews, i.e. Kriya Shema, is really none other than an eating, sleeping, waking thing. And by the way, how do you wake up? Here's the hidden fourth kind of thing. You wake up like a lion. So if you didn't wake up like David HaMelech HaChatzos, you wake up early on time like a Jew, like a lion. So the Mazal is there. What it comes down to, we're going to close on this point. When you learn Mishlei and Koheles and Shir Hashirim, particularly with the common Perush of the Gra, the pshat of Koheles is fantastic. And also Tehillim. David HaMelech wants to know only one thing. God, when is the sun going to shine from beyond the clouds? Sick and tired of it being a cloudy day. Lefi ruchnius. You wake up, it's like, hey, today is going to be awesome. And it's not. It's like, eh. And if someone said, the Gra says, if someone tells you that tomorrow will be a good day, don't believe them. You don't know if tomorrow's going to be a good day. You can't possibly know that. Just like you don't know if tomorrow's going to be a bad day. You don't know. Because the winds of divinity are always swirling. You cannot, this is the thing, life happens, people. It happens, it's real. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know who's going to be at Shul. You don't know who's going to stumble in. You don't know if you'll meet Eliyahu Navi. You don't know what Tikkun Chatzos is at night unless you do it. You don't know what the lion's roar is until you roar. You don't know the wife talking to the husband in Mazal terms until you're up on time. So David wants to know, is there a chachma to this? Can I just know when the sun shines? And Shlomo says, pal, You missed it. Guess what? Life is horrible. Most days are going to be cloudy, overcast, and boring. Bad weather, lightning, thunder, and rain, sleet, and hail. But guess what? The days of sun are enough that you'll say, those were some good years. And enough that you'll come to serious simcha. Enough to give you a full schar olam haba. Enough to keep you interested in life and in God and Torah. Darkness is just part of the game. Look at the universe. Tons of space and darkness. Also plenty of light. And this is what Torah in Judaism is. Life is time. That's all it is. Moyed. Moyed, the time period. Mazal happens according to every moment. God doesn't blink. His eyes are always on the creation, meaning there's always something going on somewhere. You're the only shlemiel out there sleeping, tired, bored, bad weather, don't know where to go, you're confused, you're blinking, it's dark, you're complaining. That's you. God's saying there's all kinds of things going on. Where are you? Right by when Adam hid. Where are you? Eicha, where are you? So the Torah is the sanctification of time. Right? We say that in the fourth day of creation, God made the sun and the moon. What that's a nice way of saying is, if we make holidays corresponding to the sun and the moon, you get both. God engineers the mitzvahs, whether they're mitzvahs Lafi 613, mitzvahs Lafi binding words of Torah like the 7 laws of Noah, mitzvahs that are just smachtas, mitzvahs that are plain, flat out just good, or mitzvahs that are even Torah. Because the Torah gives the right of the Chachamim to Mechadesh mitzvah. Have you ever heard of Hanukkah and Purim? Now that we have a Torah to sanctify time, now you have two choices. You can do it by rut, in habitual, just ritualism, Chanukhat Mincha, Chanukhat Marav, and you'll do it. And you shep hana, you'll get your ruchnius, you get what's intended, you got it, you were there, but you're probably blind to the whole thing. And that's okay. You're a ben olam haba, you get your place, you got what you've achieved. But what the Torah is saying is there's chachma. There's chachma. If you say Kriya Shema on time, lefi the Rabbanim, you'll sleep at night like a baby. The Torah wisdom says that's when your soul goes to the Yeshiva Shel Maila, and it's much better up there than the Steig down here. But if you're really keen, wake up like David HaMelech, because there's another Ruach that comes in Chatzos Laila, and you can chop it. And you can chop at 5:30 before the sun comes up, and you can chop the Zman Tefillin, and you can chop Chakras, and you can chop your work schedule from 6 to 6. That's when stuff happens. And then Minchas where stuff happens, and Maravs where stuff happens. Guess what? All that darkness really was just kind of a cover. Because you can't be in every place at the same time. But if you can be where Judaism says to be, like a garment over the sanctified wisdom and time, you get the Mazal moment. If you go to Mariv, you meet Eliyahu and Avi. Whether in Giloi, whether in your friend that told you halacha, whatever it is, God roars like a lion. Now how you are able to perceive the Mazal is up to you. If everybody in the minyan is an idiot and you're the only chacham in your eyes, as Shlomo Melech says, is the seal, you're probably not going to see too much. But if you're not the seal, and you don't know more than the Torah, then maybe you could perceive Eliyahu Navi either in Giloi, whatever it is. Open the Torah and say, wow, look at that, a Chiddush. And the same thing happens at Mincha, same thing happens when you go to bed, same thing happens when you sleep. You sanctify the time. You find the sunlight. In Halacha, God says, there's nothing that makes me happier than Dalet Almas of Halacha. And you say, oh, come on, that's the ritual stuff again, right back where we started. A wide receiver in football has more privilege than a tight end. See, I'm more fantastic than you because I can jump like a leopard and catch the ball in my little box of halacha, and it's fantastic. And if you don't do it like I do, and you don't jump the right way, you'll miss it. And he's right. You will miss it. But the tight end says, but you're not like me. See, I just stand here. And that's where all the action is. I see everything. And if you move, you'll miss it. Just like the first mission of Bava Kama, right? The Arba Avos Mazikin, Shor is not like Bor, or Shor is not like Mava, Mava is not like Shor. Right? This one's not like this, and this one's not like this, and they're both decent. So this guy davens. And he's there, and that's his zone. And that's not his zone. Is he in a Russia? No. Is he trying his best? Yes. The Vilna Gaon says again, not everybody has the same schus to do every single mitzvah. So this guy davens in the minyan. He is super guy in minyan. This guy is super Shabbos guy. He rests on Shabbos like no other. This guy not so much. This guy knows what Shabbos is. This one doesn't. This one's Lechal Chilo. This one's B'diavad. He has his game. He has his game. And it's not a contest. He has the wisdom here in the Mazal moment. He knows every Shabbos he's getting the lion roar, so to speak. He knows 3 times a day in a minyan he's getting the lion roar. The whole point of Avodas Hashem is to recognize the Mazal, recognize the Chachma. In recognizing Judaism is the tradition to receive the Chachma and sanctify as much as you can. Lishma, not ritualistic. But if you don't do the ritual, you never come to perfect it. So if you just blow it off because it's not my thing, you never get there. So it's a delicate balance. You got to do, and you got to restrain, you got to go deep. It's a measure. At the end of the day, you are judged. Are you good or are you bad? If you had 999 marks of good and 534 marks of bad, God weighs it together. Only God is the true judge, and you get your package. You enter your heichel in the world to come, and you will find out just how much Mazal and Chachma you actually did receive. The whole point is it's like that weather forecast. You have to learn that where there's stuff going on is where you got to go. Kriya Shema is not a thing to do. It's the node. Right? It's the thing that you sanctify, because if you sanctify it, that means you davened on time, you ate on time, slept on time, woke up on time, ate on time in terms of, just living wise. You woke up like a lion. Your entire universe is predicated on Kriya Shema. But it's not exactly the Ikar mitzvah. The Ikar was, back at the beginning, when do we eat? It's fantastic. Right? Judaism is the sanctification of the time, and basically everything works along those lines. Right? Judaism sanctifies the concept. On Shabbos, wearing a new shirt. We say you have to don't launder your shirt on Shabbos, is the Gezerah. What we're really saying is, if you want to do it right, just get a new shirt. How much greater Kavod Shabbos is that? Get a new shirt. So you sanctify the wisdom through the religious practice and halakha. If you want to just be ritualistic, you may. If you want to really sanctify the chachma, you may. If you're not ready for the chachma, then do the halakha. Do the religion. And we all do things we do things we don't do. But that's the point of the class. Is to come to do what is good. To sanctify the hidden wisdom in the Torah, which was given as a garment over wisdom, to be a religious practice, that we would always have a place to go, people to find, things to do, in a full encompassing life, to witness God working in the creation. That is the gift given to Klal Yisrael in the Torah. Again, our job is to connect to the innate wisdom of the Torah and see the absolute truth revealed through the Mazal, the flow from God to you in your complete avodas Hashem. Thank you very much. Have a great Passover.